Good evening, Green Bay, and welcome to Crime Adjacent Live. Thanks for coming out tonight. Remember, profilers, listen closely because every detail matters for solving this case, and this one is a doozy. On Friday night, October 11th, 2024, 28-year-old Emma Girma checked into the Silver Pines Hotel in downtown Idaho Falls, Idaho. At 8:17 p.m., she can be seen on surveillance footage of the lobby chatting with the two managers on duty, Megan LaBelle and Nathan Dunn. And they're all just chatting, laughing, nodding along with each other. Megan and Nathan gave Emma information about this newly opened boutique hotel with gorgeous views of the Snake River and a really lively cocktail bar and gourmet restaurant. Emma said she was in town for the weekend conference of physical therapists and was really looking forward to a little mini vacation, some me time. At 8:19 p.m., Emma can be seen poking her head into the restaurant, nodding in approval and giving a thumbs up to Nathan, like, yes, agreed, it does look nice. At 8:21 p.m., she accepted a gourmet ice cream sandwich from Nathan, one of the complimentary perks of this trendy new place. The flavor of the day was salted caramel. Who wouldn't accept that? Everything in this footage was just so achingly, painfully normal. Just one more guest checking in that day. So what happened next within just minutes seems so impossible. At 8:29 p.m., Emma headed to the elevator and went up to the fourth floor. At 8:32 p.m., she swiped her key card into room 417. A forensic sweep of her phone showed she texted with a boyfriend, Ryan Horan, and looked up a local hike around the river and the best breakfast places in Idaho Falls for the next day. Then, at 9:06 p.m. exactly, her phone went silent. No more texts, calls, surfing the web. At 9:06 p.m., it was as if Emma Girma disappeared off the face of the earth. Her body wouldn't be discovered for 12 days. But where she was discovered and how exactly she got there would confound investigators. Okay, profilers, let's dive straight into today's case. The case of Emma Girma in the Idaho Falls Hotel Murder. Live from Green Bay, I'm Chase Patrick, and this is Crime Adjacent. It's Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, and Silver Springs hotel guest Linda Nightswanger has had enough. She checked in on the previous day, Tuesday the 22nd, for a work trip, and as soon as she entered room 313 on the third floor, she noticed the smell. She told Crime Adjacent in an interview, "It was just so apparent, like so disgusting, I immediately covered my mouth." Linda called the front desk, like, the hotel is fine, the room is nice, but this smell, either do something about it right now or move her to a different room or refund her money, something. And the manager, Nathan Dunn, apologized profusely. He explained that the hotel must have had a sewer backup. They were aware of it. In fact, other guests on the third floor have complained as well. He was on top of it. Nathan said he couldn't move her to a different room as there were no more rooms available. This place was thriving and packed and like the fancy go-to hotel by the river. It was still relatively new and hip, and everyone wanted to stay there. It was an attraction. But they would definitely move her to a room if it becomes available, and here's a complimentary coupon for 20% off dinner at the hotel bar, and would you like another ice cream sandwich brought up? I'm honestly dying at that part, another ice cream sandwich. Linda Nightswanger's like, no, I don't want another ice cream sandwich. I want this smell to stop. All to say, Nathan really was trying his best, it sounds like, from all accounts, but it just wasn't enough. Not for just how horrible this smell was. Linda said, I literally started Googling other hotels, like, I need to get out of here. I've never experienced anything like this. But it's late now, that night, and maybe nose blindness or fatigue or something kicked in, and Linda decided to stay, to just deal with it. I barely slept that night, she said. You just couldn't get used to it. So by Wednesday, the 23rd, she'd had enough. The room was unlivable. Whatever it was, sewage, an animal in the walls, rotten food in the vents, who knows? It was just not okay. The hotel needed to do something. So Nightswanger goes down to the front desk, packed all her stuff in a suitcase, and she was prepared to literally leave the hotel and go somewhere else, anywhere else. And there were also 3 other guests already there, she saw, angry with the same complaints. The hotel needed to do something. Anything. The smell was getting worse. Megan Lavelle is the clerk on duty this day, Wednesday the 23rd, and it's just been one guest after another since the previous day, Tuesday, she said. Just like Nightswanger, all these guests wanted new rooms, refunds, something. Megan Lavelle told police later in her interviews with them, "I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. The disappearance happened nearly 2 weeks prior. It wasn't out of mind, but I just didn't connect the dots." Megan said everything clicked into place by the time Nightswanger lodged her complaint, after the other 3 guests had just made their own. Megan said, "I was listening to her and sort of unsure what to do. We really didn't have any other rooms. And then my heart suddenly just sank. It came to me. Like that." She snapped her fingers. Megan said she instantly switched gears into emergency mode. She gave Linda Nightswanger a full refund and said, "Yes, please, it would be best if you got out of that room right now." Megan even called another hotel down the block and asked for some emergency help in putting up guests. She had a feeling that plenty of people would soon need plenty of places to stay. Next, Megan called police and also her maintenance guy, Caleb Morris, sort of a jack-of-all-trades construction pro. The hotel was big enough and old enough to need a staff of hired maintenance crew on the job at all times. Toilets, forgotten keys, broken windows, that type of thing. Megan told Caleb to go inspect the 3rd floor again. There was a smell. She didn't actually have to explain why by this point, and Caleb thought it was a dead animal somewhere in the walls. He shrugged Tuesday the day before, like, not much you can do unless you want to rip open a wall to get at it. It would stop smelling eventually, he said, after, the rot phase ends. But when Megan told him what she was thinking on Wednesday, Caleb immediately agreed. Like, oh yes, he hadn't forgotten about it either, but he just didn't connect the dots. But again, it had been 2 weeks by this point. They'd both moved on. At this point, realizing along with Megan what it was, Caleb said it would be best to wait for police. Let them take the lead on what to do because this was about to become delicate. Very, very delicate. In fact, it was Caleb who suggested Megan call the hotel owners and lawyers and anyone else connected to actually running this place. Megan did just that, and the ownership group said to clear out the entire 3rd floor of this hotel, all 8 rooms, offering coupons and apologies and lodging down the road and free stays if they ever want to return. Everyone could see where this was headed, so just get all those guests out, now. By the time Detective Ashley Grace with the Idaho Falls Police Department showed up at 6 p.m. that night, Wednesday the 23rd, they were ready. By 6:31 p.m., they all entered room 318, where the smell seemed to be the strongest, and Detective Grace instructed Caleb to break down the wall that abuts the next building over, an office building. So Caleb moves the bed, he moves the nightstand, he takes down the large painting of the waterfalls from the wall, and then he grabs his sledgehammer. And the moment Caleb breaks through the wall, it's just obvious to all. There's something rotten in there, no doubt. Something dead, just as Megan had suspected. But it's not a squirrel or a raccoon, of course. They had just discovered the location of a missing woman named Emma Girma, who had checked in 12 days earlier, went up to her room, and was never seen again. Until now. This discovery obviously changed the direction of Emma's case entirely. What was once a missing person case, a true mystery, was now a murder investigation. So, what happened? What happened to Emma Girma in the Silver Pines Hotel? Profilers, I don't even know where to start with this one. The crime scene, victimology, the surveillance footage that curiously stopped the hotel's long, haunted history. It's just all so strange, and in the end, tragic. So I guess let's start here with the discovery of Emma's body, because this is the starting point for Detective Ashley Grace. Let's follow her footsteps on this one and what she learned along the way that day during the investigation. So first, where Emma was found, where Detective Grace first spotted her, behind this wall in room 318. I'll get into the history of the hotel soon enough, but briefly, it was built in 1890 and remodeled many, many times over the years through depressions and boom times. It was a hotel, an office building, a hotel again, an abandoned warehouse, and finally, in 2024, a fancy boutique hotel along the river with a view of the rushing waterfalls. Because of all this remodeling and renovations, there were odd spaces throughout, like crawl spaces here and there. This hotel was actually rebuilt in the 1920s after a fire that claimed many lives and led to rumors of a haunted hotel. Local historians say these crawlways and passages were built into the hotel in the 1920s and used by bootleggers during Prohibition. San Francisco has a few of these hotels, so I buy this theory. I've been to these places and seen the crawlways for Prohibition times. So here, in room 318, where the hotel abuts against an office building next door, there's an actual vertical passageway that runs from the roof right above the 6th floor to here on the 3rd floor, where it just stops. It doesn't go down to the ground floor, is what I mean. But why? Honestly, who knows? Historians think it was simply sealed off during one renovation or another for one reason or another from the 1920s to today. So what does that mean for this case? Well, the only access to this vertical passageway running behind the hotel bedroom walls is on the roof. So Detective Grace quickly puts together that Emma somehow, for some reason, gained access to the roof after checking in. She found an entry point to the shaft, fell through, and landed here, where the shaft stops on the 3rd floor, just behind the wall where Linda Nightswonger's bed was located. So Emma goes to the roof, falls through the shaft, and is found here, dead. Case closed. The mysterious disappearance of a hotel guest who checked in and vanished had been solved. She fell. Sad, tragic, a horrible, horrible accident. I say all this because I don't have the words for this. I can barely comprehend it. It's a small piece of this case, a side story, but when I read about all this in the research for this case, I was just like, are you serious? Who does this? Because this is quite literally what the owners of the hotel put out in a press release straight away that night, just after the discovery of Emma's body. Emma Girma had either died by suicide that night or had suffered a horrible accident, perhaps because of drugs or alcohol. The press release, authorized by Silver Pines Development LLC owner Bert Thompson himself, said, quote, "And I kid you not, perhaps like many of our guests, she enjoyed our new cocktail bar with bespoke offerings." Seriously, bespoke cocktails. What were you thinking? I talked to Megan about this, the manager, about the press release. She's actually still there, now as head manager, and Megan declined to comment on this. She simply pursed her lips and shook her head as if she, too, couldn't believe it, but obviously didn't really want to say anything else. These were the owners of the hotel. Detective Grace didn't buy this theory either, this press release and what it said, but also that Bert Thompson would also put this out there. She was sort of incensed herself. Because there was so much more to this case. It was not as simple as Bert made it out to be. And the more Detective Grace investigated, she realized this was not an accident or the result of too many bespoke cocktails. This was murder, and the only person who could have committed it was deeply associated with this hotel. Here's what I mean. Okay, let's get into the crime scene and the timeline, and then we'll get to the suspects, because there's a lot. So this shaft is narrow, about 3 feet by 3 feet. Perhaps if you're smuggling booze during Prohibition, there's just enough room for a large bucket to be lifted and lowered by a rope from the roof. Just a guess. There's no ladder or handholds like it was meant to be accessed by humans. It's so narrow that when they discovered Emma, she was upside down, her head twisted into the bottom of this shaft, and her legs crumpled above her, so that her left heel was resting on her neck. It was bad. They had to widen Caleb's initial hole in the wall and remove her that way into room 318. Detective Grace performed a cursory search of Emma's body in the room. Emma's fully dressed, still has her shoes on, big knee-high brown mock riding boots over jeans, a nice blouse, a brown sweater. This is a put-together outfit, something nice and fashionable to wear out. This offers important clues. Grace also notes a massive injury to the back of Emma's head, and this is odd. Was it from the fall? 3 stories down a narrow shaft from the roof to here? Maybe. But she was found face down, not back of her head down. Did she hit the back of her head on the way down? Maybe. Was she struck with something hard first, before falling? Also maybe. It was hard to tell given the state of decomposition. Grace saw no signs of struggle, like scratches or bruises on her face, which again was in bad shape by this point, and it was hard to tell. No skin as far as Grace could tell under her manicured nails, but the medical examiner would figure all that out soon enough. So Emma could have fallen, could have been struck, could have been murder, could have also been an accident. Grace ordered an immediate autopsy and had to wait for the results. In the meantime, she scoped out the shaft and the overall environment, including Emma's room, and that's when she really began to believe the wound on the back of Emma's head was most definitely not from the fall. So after Emma was taken away, Grace checked the room again, but it had been cleaned in the previous 12 days, and she'd actually been over all of this before, more than a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago, when Emma was first reported missing. So Detective Grace next goes to the roof. Again, she'd been there before, earlier when Emma was first reported missing, 12 days prior. The hotel and Detective Grace saw that the roof access was clearly locked. There was no way Emma could have gotten to the roof. No guest could have at all. But on the day of the discovery, they go back to the roof to inspect the top, or opening of this shaft. Caleb, the jack-of-all-trades hotel maintenance guy, shows the route Emma must have taken to get there, to the roof. This is where the alarm bells begin. So from room 417, Emma's, she would have had to take the elevator to the 6th floor or the stairs. Caleb and Grace thought stairs because there was no surveillance footage of Emma in the elevator after her initial arrival and check-in. And to get to the roof, she would have had to go up to the 6th floor and then find a thick steel access door there. But the thing is, this door is locked. All the time, Caleb said. It's not an emergency exit to the street or fire escape. It's a door to the roof, and the hotel obviously doesn't want guests to go up there. Caleb has a key, of course, and he unlocks this door and takes Detective Grace to where the vertical shaft must be located. According to Caleb, he's not actually sure this is the access point. He's never actually looked for himself. There's just never been a need, and he didn't even really know this shaft existed, he said. Again, this hotel had been open less than a year by this point. Caleb said he'd only been up to the roof a few times. So Caleb scouts around with Detective Grace and finds what looks like a steel hatch door lying on the ground at the side of the building. And Grace notices straight away this hatch opening is locked. There's a padlock on it. It looks old and weather-beaten. Grace asks Caleb if this lock has always been there, and Caleb shrugs. I think so. There's no reason to access this shaft, ever. He does remember, however, that it looked exactly the same as it did earlier when the search for Emma began, on the Saturday after she was first reported missing. He and Nathan Dunn and Megan LaBelle, they all went up there multiple times. Grace and some other cops accompanied them. They checked the roof for any signs of Emma, and Caleb said he saw this hatch, but the padlock was there. He was sure of it. Nathan and Megan attested to this. Why bother opening a door Emma clearly didn't have access to? They carried on elsewhere with their search, looking for Emma. But on this day, the day of the discovery of Emma's body, Caleb found the giant ring of keys to all the doors of the hotel, and they opened this padlock. He heaved open the shaft, and he and Detective Grace peered down, could see the light emanating from room 317 below and the hole they had just made in the wall. There appeared to be no other holes or access points to this shaft. If Emma was found at the bottom of this shaft, the roof hatch, was the only possible entry point. Detective Grace gave us an interview for this episode and said, "As soon as I saw there were no other possible access points, I knew this was a murder. No doubt, no question, This was not an accident. Here's what was going through Grace's mind, she said. 1, the wound on the back of Emma's head. Grace didn't need to wait for an autopsy. This was clearly administered before she fell, and it probably was enough for Emma to topple over. She was then either pushed directly into the shaft or someone with a key unlocked the hatch and shoved her in to hide her after an attack. How did she know? Because of the second thing she immediately thought. Profilers, I know without a doubt that you smarties all thought of this one too. And that is that there is no way Emma falls into the shaft, lands with her body in a pretzel, and then manages to somehow shimmy up to the roof again and lock the padlock behind her from the outside, and then fall back down again to where she was found. This was not an accident. Someone did this to her, and someone tried to conceal her body. Someone locked this hatch behind her. And were it not for that smell, it might have worked. Over the past 11 days since Emma's disappearance was first reported, no one thought to unlock and check this shaft. It was locked. The roof was locked. There were no signs of struggle anywhere they checked. So that's where things stood in the hours after the discovery of Emma in this weird shaft between the walls. No matter what Bert friggin' Thompson tried to say with bespoke cocktails and accidents, that just kills me every time I think about it. I can't help it. Grace ruled it a murder and then set about backtracking to figure out what happened.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Grace told us in an interview that her next steps were simple. She needed to know everything about Emma, about her movements on the day of her disappearance, murder. And then finally, who might have had motive and opportunity to do this. So let's backtrack along with Detective Grace. Who was Emma Girma? What was her victimology? And how did she wind up here? Here's what we know. Emma Girma, age 28, was born in Boise to parents Ona and Gary Girma. Middle-class upbringing, Gary was a teacher, and Ona actually serves in the state Senate, one of the few liberal-leaning politicians in the Idaho Senate. Keep that in mind. It comes up in the profile. Nice neighborhood, good schools, the same schools her dad taught at. Emma played soccer from an early age until the middle of high school when ACL injuries, first in one knee and then in another, a year after her first recovery, stopped her dreams of playing in college and beyond. The more she researched her injury, the more she realized she was not alone. Girls and young women, and soccer in particular, were undergoing this nationwide rash of such injuries. And Emma, she wanted to help other young girls like her not to have to go through the same thing. But medical school wasn't really her thing. She wanted a more hands-on approach, like working with athletes if she couldn't be one herself. So Emma went to Boise State and studied kinesiology, and when she was there, she realized she actually loved working with kids more than anything, helping them recover from sports injuries, falls, natural disabilities, you name it. In college, some red flags in her victimology began appearing, things that might raise the risk of danger, but obviously not through any fault of her own. She had a few boyfriends or even flings, and these guys turned into stalkers. Mark Adams, in her sports nutrition classes, became a stalker to the point that she had to file a restraining order against him. The university didn't do much, but the court said he could have no more contact. And this happened again after graduation. A boyfriend she broke up with, Michael McGurk, just wouldn't let her be. And I kid you not, about a month after graduation, he actually got into a fight with another man just outside of Emma's Boise apartment. This other man, Mark Adams. Yes, her two stalkers fought outside of her apartment. Ona Girma, Emma's mother, told the Boise Tribune, This is actually not funny. People were making jokes about it, like she's so pretty she had men fighting about her. She couldn't fight them off. But this scared the crap out of her. After college, Emma got a job at St. Luke's Hospital as a rehabilitation therapist and loved it. Loved it. She said she'd be happy there for the rest of her days. She loved all the kids she worked with. They loved her. And for the profile at least, this job didn't raise any risk profiles, according to the profiling assessment the FBI conducted when the police reached out for help. Meaning, sometimes a job can raise risk factors for people, such as sex work or illicit economies, or even, say, being a prosecutor. Someone might be out to get you for something you did to them, something like that. But a 6-year-old you helped learn to walk? Probably a safe bet and not a suspect in your disappearance. But remember her mother, Ona, was one of the only liberal state senators in the Idaho State Senate, a super conservative environment? This actually went into the profile as well, like was Emma targeted for political retribution or anger or something like that? Idaho is known as a hangout for white supremacy and KKK groups. It's where OJ detective Mark Furman famously fled to after all those tapes were discovered of him being super racist. So all of this was on Grace's mind and actually made it into the profile. Her general environment was pretty safe, however. Emma lived not far from the hospital on 1st Street downtown, a 3rd-story walk-up, 1-bedroom apartment, but in a nice, new, fancy-ish modern building. Good security, dedicated garage. Her parents and friends reported no run-ins with neighbors or any other issues. This brings us to her person, her actual self, her body. Detective Grace noted something in all the photos she saw of Emma, and this too became a part of the victimology and profile. Emma was drop-dead gorgeous, like model gorgeous, with her mother's Indian American looks and her dad's tall, athletic grace. It was noticeable. There's no other way to put it, and it factors into this case. Like, did she attract unwanted attention from a violent man? That actually happened to her quite a bit. And then there was this risk factor, a woman traveling alone. It obviously shouldn't raise danger levels, but Detective Grace says it does in profiling. And she was traveling alone that weekend from Boise to Idaho Falls. There's no actual database on this, but the DOJ tracked travel industry data that says 80% of women, solo women travelers, have faced violence or harassment or abuse from men. Simply traveling solo as a woman, especially someone like Emma who was drop-dead model gorgeous, that raises victim risk, according to the detectives in the profile in this case. She has been harassed and abused and stalked in the past, and Ryan Horan, her boyfriend, said Emma was definitely on high alert for danger, while trying her best to balance just living her life normally without fear of violence. Okay, that's the victimology, and it's a lot. More or less low risk, no shady economies or debts or illicit drugs, does attract unwanted stalking, harassment. She traveled alone, again, it's maddening, but those are the only things that bumped up the risk factors for Detective Grace. All in all, Emma was basically a low-risk individual, other than simply being a pretty woman traveling alone. So with this in mind, Grace got to work assembling the timeline of her final moments. And this timeline began to put her into contact with suspects. So let's start with Emma's travel day and her disappearance day, Friday, October 11th, 2024. So we know, backtracking here, that Emma checked into the hotel at 8:17 p.m. That's when she was first seen on surveillance footage in the lobby chatting with Megan Lavelle and Nathan Dunn, the managers on duty. Both reported it was all so normal, routine, just one more guest checking in. Nathan gave her an ice cream sandwich, one of the perks. He said Emma looked happy. I mean, who's not happy with the salted caramel ice cream sandwich? Not as good as bespoke cocktails. I'm sorry, I'm still not over that. Emma checked out the restaurant, sort of poked her head in, and then accidentally bumped into Nathan. He said, "Oh, are you following me?" And they all laughed, according to Megan. Just normal check-in type banter. Nathan showed her the elevator and waved goodnight. And at 8:32 p.m., Emma swipes her key card into room 417. We know now, based on her phone records, that she briefly texted her boyfriend, Ryan Horan, to say she made it, she was fine, that they'd talk later. It was brief. For good reason. Emma browsed the internet for great breakfast spots in Idaho Falls, and she searched for hiking spots, all signs of someone who had plans the next day, not including the reason she was here, which was a medical conference to discuss physical therapy for kids. She searched for directions on how to get to the conference, which was about 6 blocks away in the local embassy suites. And then, at exactly 9:06 p.m., all phone activity stopped. This was when Emma seemingly dropped off the face of the earth, when she somehow disappeared from room 417, somehow made it to the roof, somehow fell through this hatch, and would be found 12 days later in this narrow hidden shaft between the buildings. We know all these parts after she arrived at the hotel, but Detective Grace painstakingly went about reconstructing her whole final day, that Friday. In this more fulsome timeline intersects with the first chief suspect, Ryan Horan, the boyfriend. Emma and Ryan, age 31, and a 911 dispatcher in Boise, had been living together for 3 years by 2024. Ryan said, and phone records show that Emma woke up at about 7 a.m. Friday, her usual time. They both worked out together, had breakfast, and Emma could be seen leaving for work at 8:55 a.m., pulling out of her garage. She clocked into work in her first PT appointment at 9:15 a.m. that morning and was at work the whole day. This is accounted for by phone records, her colleagues, videos, you name it. She was at St. Luke's all day. That's not in question. Just a normal routine day, according to her colleagues and friends. Not a hint that she would simply walk away from everything just hours later. Just disappear to start over, one of the actual theories that surfaced later. The only possible hitch in this day is when Emma clocked out at 3 p.m. It was a 4-hour drive to Idaho Falls, and she left about 3 p.m. that day instead of 5-ish, her usual time to leave work. That's the only thing that was different in her routine. Phone and credit card records trace her path in her blue Ford F-150 the whole time from Boise to Idaho Falls. She hit Highway 86 and went south to Chubbuck, where she stopped to fill the truck's tank. A brief stop, 15-20 minutes. She got back on the road and stopped once more in Mountain Home for a local Wendy's. Ryan said she probably didn't just get hungry and was in need of a quick pit stop. She had actually spoken about wanting to try the new restaurant at the hotel, and she was looking forward to it. She was a serious foodie, part of the reason she picked this hotel as opposed to the Embassy Suites where the conference was. Ryan said she probably stopped for Wendy's for a specific reason. She loved to get a shake and some French fries and dip the fries into the shake. Listeners of Crime Adjacent Season 7 might remember the third victim of the rest stop killer, Bobby Briggs. He, too, loved nothing more than a Wendy's fry and shake combo. It's how he was ultimately found on the side of the road and kidnapped. Anyway, Emma hit the highway again and made it to Idaho Falls at about 8:10 p.m. She parked in the lot across from the hotel and made it to the lobby at 8:17. The only possible red flag in all of this, of course, as you might have expected, was the boyfriend, Ryan Horan. Let's dig into this now. Ryan was quickly chief suspect number 1. In fact, he was the only suspect in this case in what was first a disappearance. Partly because of his own timeline that day, and partly because of their relationship and, well, statistics that Grace was well aware of. So like I said, by 2024, Emma and Ryan had been living together for 3 years, and by and large, things were good. But 3 years is a long time and a long relationship, and Emma wanted to know how things were going, where they were headed, i.e., are there wedding bells in the near future? She desperately wanted kids of her own, according to her mother, Ona. Ryan, however, did not. It became a source of increasing tension in their relationship over the past year in particular. In fact, they were considering breaking up in the 2 months prior to Emma's trip to Idaho Falls. They spoke about this, just fundamentally had different views on life and what they wanted from it, which, fine. And to be clear, we know this from Ryan, who was upfront with police and the FBI from the start. He submitted to every interview, a lie detector test, a forensic search of the apartment and all their computers and phones. Ryan told us later for this episode, I'm not a cop, but I work with them and I know how important these early moments are in an investigation. This was the love of my life. She was missing. I wanted to help as much as I possibly could. Ryan said yes. She wanted kids, marriage, a life of their own. He did not. He loved Emma, but just didn't want to have kids or get married so soon, or really, even at all. Here's where it gets odd and cringy, I guess. To be honest, he said, much of his hesitation had to do with him being what he described as sort of average, and Emma as drop-dead, world-class model gorgeous. He was afraid she would eventually leave him for another man, he said, someone with a higher-paying job, or better looks, or taller. Emma's good friend and workmate, Olivia at Stanford, said Emma was indeed thinking of this in recent months, of leaving him, but not because there was another man with more money or better looks. No, it was because Ryan thought she had it in her to do that. Like, does he really think she's that shallow? They'd lived together for 3 years. Was he really that insecure? She was infuriated. I bring all this up, the boyfriend, the relationship, the insecurities, the previous stalker she had, because police discovered something interesting in Ryan's phone during the investigation. On this weekend in October 2024, on Friday, Ryan and Emma texted back and forth about whether he should come for the weekend to Idaho Falls with her. She had a room. He had free time that weekend after work Friday. Why don't they make a mini vacation of it all? Emma is at work during this text at St. Luke's. Ryan is at work at the police department. They don't actually call and talk. They text. And after the end of this sort of mini conversation/argument, Emma says no, don't come. She wanted time alone. She wanted to think. Ryan practically insisted, said he was sad. He kept pushing. And there's more. Emma finished her shift and got on the road early at 3. She was already packed and ready for the weekend. Ryan finished his shift as a dispatcher at 4:30 p.m. and headed home, and then, suddenly, emerged from their apartment and got on Highway 86, going towards Idaho Falls. Ryan told detectives, "We had a bit of an argument, and I just wanted to see her, to talk. That's it." So this relationship and this fight and Ryan's decision to drive to Idaho Falls, despite being expressly asked not to, this screamed red flag, for sure. Detective Grace was all over it, partly because she knew about domestic violence stats in America. The DOJ says 76% of women are killed by someone they know, like a boyfriend or a husband or a jealous lover. Ryan fit this category. It makes the most sense. This stat is literally why every romantic partner is looked at as prime suspect number 1. So that's what Grace was thinking straight away, given the argument and the stats and her own experience in this fight. But the thing is, Ryan didn't actually travel to Idaho Falls that night. As he said to police, quote, "I got about 20 minutes out of town and sort of kicked myself, like, what the hell am I doing? She said she needed space, and here I am tracking her down, so I just turned around and went home." Grace, of course, didn't buy it, not for a second, until she tracked his phone, which, again, he had given over. That's how they knew about the argument in the first place. And she discovered he was indeed at home for the rest of the night. He could be seen pulling back into the apartment garage at 6:01 p.m. that night, and the car remained there for the rest of the night, along with his phone and all of his devices. He even chatted with a friend that night, Melissa Ferrero, who backed up all this for police. Ryan was home. He loved Emma. He'd never hurt her. But those texts from Ryan to Emma kept coming, normally. At 10:12 that night, he texted goodnight. "I love you. Have fun this weekend." The next morning, Saturday, he said he didn't want to be clingy or not give her the space which she asked for, but he also thought it was so strange that she didn't text good morning, or a photo of her food at least, which she loved to do. So not having heard from her by 11 a.m. Saturday, he thought maybe she really did need space, a lot of it. Maybe this was all more serious than he thought. He wanted to text, but he also didn't want to text. He was getting a bad feeling deep in his gut. Finally, at 12:30 p.m. Saturday, he texted, "Hope you're having fun." And he was relieved when he felt his phone vibrate in response, like, yay, she's texted back. All is good. But this wasn't a text from Emma. Ryan looked at his phone and saw that the text he had received in response was from Olivia Stanford, Emma's good friend and workmate. It said, "Hey, is Emma not coming this weekend? She okay? I haven't been able to reach her." Ryan said, "My heart dropped immediately. If Emma needed space from me, fine. But she was looking forward to this conference and seeing all her work friends and hanging out. So if Olivia hadn't seen her yet, that was bad." Olivia backed all this up. She and Ryan talked on the phone, and Olivia agreed to head to the hotel immediately to check on Emma. So Olivia, already in town for the conference, goes to the lobby, says hello to Megan Lavelle, the manager that day, and asked about Emma. Yes, she checked in. That's all Megan could say. So Olivia asked Megan to call the room. There was no answer. Megan, to her credit, glommed onto the fact that Olivia was super concerned, like this was out of the ordinary. And Megan, thankfully, agreed to go up to the hotel room 417. I actually love this so much, it doesn't hurt to check. But Megan comes back down a few minutes later with a serious face, like something is definitely up. Emma's phone was there, her purse, her wallet, but her luggage was still unpacked, and her bed was still made. It had never been slept in. Megan asked if, perhaps, Emma might have met a man or a woman and stayed in a different room. No judgment, Megan said. No chance, Olivia said, and besides, she'd never missed the conference even if so. Megan checked the hotel computer and said there were no other key swipes into the room and no record of any maid service, so Emma didn't wake up and meticulously make the bed herself, and who does that anyway? Olivia said to call police. Right away, Emma was missing. This was an emergency. And again, to Megan's credit, she is on it, big time. So while Megan is on the phone with police, Olivia calls Ryan, who calls around to all of Emma's friends and workmates, and then even to her parents. By 2 p.m. that day, Saturday, they're all on the way to Idaho Falls, converging on the Silver Pines Hotel. And honestly, to the credit of the police there, they take this case seriously straight away. It's just odd. Something clearly strange has happened. And maybe there's pretty privilege here afforded Emma in a way that is not always afforded to other missing people. It's not missing white woman syndrome because Emma reads as more Indian American than white, but police see her photos and they're on it. But then also, there's this. It turns out that first responding officer, Officer Lynette Jordan, is actually a super huge true crime buff. Crime junkie, crime adjacent, My Favorite Murder, Mr. Ballin, Generation Y, all of it. Lynette said in an interview, "Oh, I knew this was strange, straight away, and I was immediately thinking of all those strange hotel cases, not just whether she was pretty, which she was." Strange hotel cases? Yes, things like this have happened before. Listeners might remember our coverage of Lisa Lamb way back in Season 2 about the case of a woman who was caught on an elevator camera acting very strangely. She went missing from the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles on January 26, 2013, and wasn't discovered for several days in a water tank on the roof. Or the death of Ray Rivera back in 2006 in Baltimore. He abruptly left home after a phone call one day and wasn't seen for 8 days. And then he suddenly turns up dead inside a conference room at the Belvedere Hotel. His death remains undetermined to this day. Or Kanika Jenkins, who went missing in 2017 from the Crown Plaza Hotel in Chicago while at a party and was found in a freezer the next day. Officer Jordan said, "I put out the red alert straight away because some of these hotel cases are just so bizarre to say the least, and this looked exactly like that." Good for her. Jordan wants to be a detective, she said, and sort of trailed Detective Grace for this case. And indeed, it became a case straight away, a disappearance case on that Saturday, October 12th. Her family arrived, Ryan, all of Emma's friends at the conference and at work. They searched the hotel, her truck in the parking lot, practically every square inch of downtown Idaho Falls. They even checked the breakfast joint Emma had Googled the night before, and the waitress said no, she never saw the gorgeous woman whose photo police showed her. She would have remembered, no doubt. Like I said, police and the hotel staff even searched the roof, just to be sure. And they all agreed there is no way Emma could have made it up there, given the locked door on the 6th floor, and then the shaft hatch was padlocked. By Sunday, with no clues or even ideas about what happened and no actual signs of foul play in Emma's room, they did indeed begin to wonder if Emma had a medical event or simply left, walked away from everything. Her family, friends, Ryan, they said no way. They kept pressing. They knew something was wrong, and again, to the police's credit on this one, especially Grace and Jordan, they really did treat this as suspicious, even though there was no actual crime to investigate. Grace searched all the surveillance footage and saw Emma enter the lobby, chat with Megan and Nathan, the managers, peek into the bar and take an ice cream sandwich from Nathan, and then head to the elevator and head to the room on the 4th floor. Grace said there was just nothing. It was all so normal. Of course, if there were cameras on the 4th floor, this would have been solved much, much faster. No cameras? This has been a source of suspicion and initial conspiracy, and ultimately, it became the thing that cracked this case. So like I said, Grace was there at the hotel to see all the surveillance footage. She and manager Nathan Dunn sat in the security room together going over everything, and this is how we have the painstaking timeline of Emma's movements when she arrived. The check-in, the elevator ride, the keycard swipe into room 417. But Nathan said there were no actual cameras in the hallways, guest privacy issues, and there were no cameras on the roof because, well, obviously, who goes there? No one is allowed, and it's locked. So all this surveillance gave Detective Grace the timeline, but nothing else. It was as if Emma checked in and vanished. But 12 days later, after her body was found, and this was now an honest-to-God murder investigation, Detective Grace and Officer Jordan head back to the hotel to see all the tapes again. They don't just want to see it, they want copies for the murder investigation. And by this point, the autopsy results were back. Emma had been struck on the back of the head by something large and metal, perhaps a pipe or bar of some type. The fall down the shaft didn't help, obviously, but the coroner ruled this injury to the back of the head was so severe that she was 100% knocked out cold and possibly killed almost instantly before she fell into the shaft on her face. The coroner, actually Megan Lavelle's sister, Bernice Lavelle, did something cool. She took a sample of the air quality in the shaft and the walls along the shaft and was able to determine that Emma didn't have any of that air material or shaft material in her lungs, meaning by the time she was in the shaft, she was no longer breathing. It was an aha moment. Emma was probably hit up on the roof. There was no blood in her room or in the hallway or on the stairs. Then, after this strike, she was probably dumped into the shaft. And obviously, that means someone had to know about this shaft and have the keys to access it, as well as the ability to lure Emma to the roof. Again, she was most likely struck there on the roof, and this makes sense because no one is going to carry a dead woman up 2 flights of stairs or to the elevator to get up to the roof. It would be too difficult, too taxing, and you might be seen on video surveillance in the elevator. Detective Grace said this narrowed our suspect pool considerably. Who would do this, and who would have keys to the shaft to hide her? Caleb Mewis, maintenance worker, Nathan Dunn, manager, or Megan Lavelle, also manager. We should add Bert Thompson to this list just for fun, but he was in New York. Bespoke cocktails, I cannot get over that press release. Caleb was not on duty that night. According to his wife and his phone records, he was at home on High Street about 1 full mile away. His wife testified to this. So that leaves Megan and Nathan, the managers who checked Emma in that night. But which one? In the end, this turned out to be the easiest part of the investigation. Detective Grace returned to the hotel after the autopsy ruling came back and asked Megan, who was on duty, for all the security footage. And Megan just happily handed it over, like, here you go, happy to help. But Megan noticed that this footage, which Nathan had already prepared, didn't have any hallway footage from the 4th floor or the 5th or the 6th. Strange, she said. Grace told Megan that Nathan had said earlier that there was no footage of the hallways for guest privacy. And Megan said no, that's not the case at all. All of the hallways have cameras and footage. Hearing this, Grace wanted to see the lobby footage all over again, from the time Emma checked in at 8:17. And sure enough, what she saw sealed it. It did indeed look all normal and routine. But while Megan was just tapping away on her computer, manager Nathan Dunn was clearly, very clearly, checking out Emma. Well, maybe not super clearly, as Grace did miss this in the beginning. But on a new look at these tapes, Nathan was definitely keeping his eye on her, smiling, chatting, sort of following her when she went to the restaurant to see it. She bumped into him. He made a joke, or what sounded like a joke. Are you following me? He offered an ice cream sandwich and just stared at her while she ate it. He watched and waved as she entered the elevator. Was it a polite wave? A creepy, I've got my eye on you thing? In hindsight, it didn't seem like a solicitous welcome. It seemed odd, like he was keeping his eye on her. So Grace asked Megan if Nathan was working that day to speak with him, and she said no. Actually, he wasn't. He had called in sick since Emma's discovery. Grace is obviously thinking of all the clues in this case. Who would be able to access the roof? Who had keys to this hatch, the padlock? Who had access to Emma? And who had the ability to erase footage from the hallways? Nathan Dunn. Grace and Officer Jordan headed to his house straight away. And, well, he broke. Instantly. Turns out he actually really was sick. He had been having paranoid episodes, and from his point of view, which was all captured on Jordan's body camera, Nathan copped to the murder straight away. From his perspective, Emma was following him. He was sure of it. In the lobby, in the restaurant, when he went up to the 4th floor, there she was, peeking her head out of the door at 9:10 p.m. She heard a noise, she said. Is everything okay? And Nathan, sure she was following her at this point, says everything's fine. In fact, he was headed to the roof. Did she care to join him? It had the best view of the falls from up there. You could see them directly from above. It was neat. This is another perk of this boutique hotel. Come with him. Nathan said she said yes. She let the door shut behind her, and they headed down the hallway to the stairwell together. All of this fits with Emma's adventurous, fun-loving personality, according to her family. At this point, Emma was still in her boots and clothes and was apparently getting ready to go down to the restaurant for a late dinner and drink. And instead, she's led to the roof where Nathan confronts her. Why are you following me? Nathan picks up a piece of rebar and bashes her over the head. Panicked, she's clearly dead, he opens the hatch with his keys, dumps her body into the shaft, and relocks the padlock before heading downstairs to his shift and making sure all the guests were comfortable. This was it. Just like that, a smart, adventurous, beautiful woman lured up to the roof and violently attacked, only to be hidden in this secret shaft. Emma Girma didn't simply vanish. This hotel was never haunted. It was Nathan Dunn the entire time. And he told police the whole thing. The walk up to the roof, to hiding her body in the shaft, it all took only 3 minutes. No wonder no one had any idea where she went. It was so fast and then so easily concealed. Nathan was arrested that day, and his case is still pending as of 2026. His lawyers are arguing he suffers from a known mental illness called delusional disorder, persecutory type. This allows for weird hallucinations and delusions of conspiracy and being, well, persecuted in some way, like being followed. But it also allows for regular functioning, like keeping a job, even a solid high-stress job like hotel manager. He was good at it. But somehow, according to his lawyers anyway, he grew to believe after that initial meeting and this ice cream sandwich and bumping into Emma and seeing her pop her head out of the room, that Emma was somehow following him, that she was there to spy on him. Like I said, this case is still pending. Ryan and Emma's family and friends, meanwhile, are grateful to have answers. They want Nathan prosecuted, but they recalled what a weird, morbid relief it was to just know what happened. Emma didn't simply walk away from everything, and her disappearance is no longer a mystery or another one of this hotel's haunted legends. She was murdered, and now they're waiting for justice. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, Green Bay. I'll be in the merch line all night. Come say hi. And listeners at home can follow Crime Adjacent on Patreon and all your favorite social media channels. We will see you in Milwaukee next week with another case you simply will not believe. Until next time, I'm Chase Patrick, and this is Crime Adjacent.